Hello everyone, you're listening to The Right Side of Gaming. Today we're going to be going over the Dimir Assassin class from Magic Legends. If you manage to hit the jackpot in the Dimir Assassin Booster Pack, you're going to get not only the Dimir Assassin cosmetic, but the actual class and a spell to go with it. Now the Dimir Assassin, if you get it all the way up to level 30, is going to give you a trait that says, whenever you draw a spell, creatures you control gain lesser resistance for 5 seconds. Whenever you discard a spell, enemies within 15 feet gain greater vulnerability for 5 seconds. So the first thing I want to note is that is very Dimir in both the card game and in Magic Legends. Blue has a lot of card draw, black has some discard. We also see a little bit of draw in black and a little bit of discard in blue. What is it? Tolarian Winds is a wheel effect in blue where you discard everything, draw everything back, so you can, trigger both of these effects off of that. Black has a little bit of card draw in there too. It's not a lot. It usually requires some type of sacrifice on your part, so we'll see. But you can, make a deck that's focused around just one of these things too. You're going to have creatures out for the draw spell to take effect, so you can probably pair it with something other than black, or you can see how it wants you to play some black creatures and sacrifice some stuff, and we'll see that later on. But you can do just half of this. Again, you can do discard in black and really pump up vulnerability and try to hit them with some big spells, which may not necessarily be in blue. We'll see. Night Veil Spectre is our blue-black creature spell, which means it requires both colors of mana to cast, which is why it's a little bit stronger, but a lot of its abilities are stuff that we see on other creatures. First off, it has hexproof, which means you can't target it directly. Like the enemies won't be attacking it unless it's gets hit by an AoE or something, or if it loses hexproof, which we'll see it does. Now, whenever it enters the battlefield, it's going to do damage to an enemy and stun them. We see other creatures with enter the battlefield effects that will stun or deal damage, and a lot of times it'll do those to multiple enemies. This does both, but just to one enemy. Also, it has a special ability. Every third spell you draw, it teleports to an enemy and damages them, but it loses hexproof for a period of time. So it's going to get a little extra damage while it's out on the field, but that's going to make it easier to take out when he does. I want to take a look at the passive effects for the Assassin. It gets a 500 sorcery damage potency and a 250 control rating. The exact inverse of Mind Mage, which is 500 control and 250 sorcery damage potency. And you can take a look at the Necromancer, and you can see how maybe it's combining the two instead of just flipping Mind Mage, because it gets the 500 sorcery damage potency and 250 healing, which doesn't come into play here. Now that's, it's going to be able to hit for a pretty good amount. It's going to have some control benefits. I can see it being one people seriously consider in PvP. I don't know yet just how much that damage potency and control rating is going to come into play at higher levels. If you've got thousands of sorcery damage potency, maybe 500 isn't a lot. But if you don't, then that's going to make a big difference. We're just going to have to kind of wait and see sort of what everything tops out at. But it's definitely some numbers there to focus on. Now, as for its abilities, it's a mid-range primary attack. So it's going to throw its blades, and they're going to come back to you, and it's going to damage anyone it hits whenever it throws. Its secondary, it's going to teleport and deal damage in an area around it, and there's going to be a brief period where you're untargetable and invulnerable during all that, and you're going to get a movement speed bonus afterwards. So that is actually a little bit better than the Geomancer. The Geomancer has a jump it can do, and it'll deal AoE damage, but it doesn't get that necessarily invulnerability, untargetedness, or if it does, it's much shorter, and it doesn't get the movement speed bonus. I don't think. I haven't seen anything about that in a while. Maybe because the Geomancer can do it twice, they had to make the Assassin one a little bit better. I don't know. We're gonna have to see how that one plays out. It's possible they may have to nerf that a little bit, but I'm not entirely sure yet. I haven't really seen a whole lot of assassins floating around. Actually, I don't think I've run into one yet. Then you have Blink Strike, which is its utility. So you're gonna throw your blade, and then you're gonna teleport to it, and you're going to damage and disorient, which is that stun that gets broken if they're damaged, enemies that you pass through. And then you're going to get a movement speed bonus. Now this is one of those where if you look through, all of their abilities do damage, which isn't something we necessarily see with all the other classes. So I feel like that definitely makes it a more attractive option than maybe some of the others. I'm going to let you look through the sort of passive abilities it gets. I'm going to talk about some of them. Most of them aren't anything too major. Like, its primary ability buff is that the last attack will also deal a little damage over time. You want to go over their sort of ultimate ability. It's like a half transformation. Instead of getting a totally new ability for the ultimate that it does, it's kind of like the Geomancer ultimate, where it sort of replaces its abilities, but instead of replacing them, in this case, it just buffs the existing ones a bit. Okay? All this really says is whenever you use one of your regular abilities, you're going to make copies of yourself that, you're not necessarily controlling them. It's just part of the effect attack. And you're going to deal a little bit more damage and probably have a little more AoE on the primary and secondary. So you're basically doing what you normally do whenever you use your ultimate. Then, these aren't anything major. You're going to get a additional damage to controlled enemies with that secondary ability. And then this is just, we're going to reduce some cooldown of your utility. These are the two big ones that I think people are going to want to really work towards and give some serious consideration to. Okay? Out of everything on, this entire list, these are the two that I think are really going to affect how you build the assassin. Level 20 is whenever you sacrifice a creature, draw a spell. You can use this to get that card draw that you need to trigger your traits and some other stuff without necessarily having to play blue. You can lean a little bit heavier into the sacrifice aspect of black, and that'll let you, put in a different color spell. Likewise, Upper Hand says that whenever you cast a sorcery with a control effect, gain Lesser Might, increased damage, for 5 seconds. So this will let you lean into maybe blue a little bit more and kind of replace black. Okay, maybe I don't care about giving my enemies vulnerabilities when I can just get Lesser Might and do a big spell. Now again, obviously these still work together really well, but I think they open up some other colors if you really want to focus on just one half instead of having to balance, card draw, discard, and sacrifice all together. Because that's, multiple things you're having to balance in a 2-color deck that may get a little advanced for some players. This is going to say, okay, well, maybe you just want to take a look at half of that trait and parts of the effect and build in a different way. Like I can see black-red or blue-red being a thing. And in all honesty, red is a color in Magic the Gathering, the card game, that gets what we call loot effects, which is where you draw a card and then discard a card, or discard a card and then draw a card. That, I could see them putting in at some point in time, which would also let you trigger a little bit more with the assassin. So if they ever put something like that in there, I think the assassin is definitely going to have a little bit more ability to expand out into other colors. I think that's all I wanted to say about the assassin. think my next video is going to be on some of our patch notes. I was going to do that yesterday, and then I noticed, it's like, okay, we had the release notes, and we had a day 1 patch, and then said, hey, you know what? I know you want to make this video, but we're actually going to do another day's worth of patching. So I'm going to wait and see when those come out, which is going to be a little later today that you're watching this, some point today. And I'm just going to do them all together at one point, because I know there's been some bug issues in the game, and it's not quite operating as a lot of people would want. It'd just be good to see it all together and see what all they're working on. But that's it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you'd like to leave a like, comment, subscribe, that would be great. If not, that's okay too. Either way, I hope you have an awesome day, and I will catch you next time.